Hey, welcome everyone to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host and commander, Emmett Muckles. Today I have a guest that I am really happy to talk to. His name is Jeef Spies. He has a lot of good information concerning renewable energy and how he got there. He's an expatriate of Michigan as I am, so stay tuned. It's going to be interesting. Hello, everybody. This is Emmett Muckles with the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. My guest today is Jeef Spies. I've known him for a couple of years. We've been traveling in circles, and we traveled in circles for a couple of years without me really getting to, interact with him. And then one day we had this mutual seminar in, I think it was Michigan, and that's where he really took light in my life. And the reason was for that because he taught me something. He taught me something I had no clue about, which was wind, of all things. So I'd like to welcome you, Jeef, to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
It's good to be here, Emmett.
I'm glad that you said yes, and that's part of life. Sometimes it's just say yes. And, there are certain people that I've come across in my life that I would like to just sit down and just chop it up with. And you were one of them. And, I reached out to you and you said, sure, I don't know what you want me to do, but you said, I'm down for you. And I was like, bet. So thank you again for showing up. But let me just talk a little bit about what you do. So you used to be and we have some, let me digress. Jeff and I are native Michiganders or Metro Detroiters. And here's one thing that I know about the people who leave Michigan or leave Detroit. They are kind of big in whatever they do once they leave Michigan. Haven't you noticed that?
I've never really thought about it that way, but I'll have to start paying attention.
I want you to pay attention to like IMDb, and there are some phenomenal people who are very prominent in our world, and they're from Detroit, and you would never know it. So I just take it as like a thing. It's that hustle ethic, as I like to call it. But Jeff is, we both work in the renewable energy field. Specifically, yeah. I work in solar, and Jeff has fingers in several different things. So let's go back to your history. You started off in Detroit, and
yeah. I'm originally from the city of Detroit and grew up in and around the Detroit metropolitan area. Went to school at Michigan State University for mechanical engineering, and it was interesting at the time I was in college, and this is the mid-'80s. It seemed amongst the group of friends that I had, which were folks in engineering or folks in other departments also, their primary desire was to leave the state of Michigan, and I was no different. I think at that time it really was. The auto industry had gone through a number of up and down cycles. The down ones were more fresh in our memory.
Yeah.
And it seemed like most folks in my age group, again, they just wanted to leave the state. And I did, and I ended up getting a job working for a company that was headquartered in New York State, upstate New York, but I ended up moving to the Chicago area. And I thought, boy, I really would love to live in Chicago. Having been from Detroit, my appreciation of the outside world was pretty limited, and Chicago seemed like a exciting place, and it was an interesting place to live. My wife and I lived there for about 10 years, and but we ended up getting drawn down to Arizona by a friend of mine in college who kept talking me into coming out, and finally we did in February. And you know what it's like in Michigan or in Chicago in February. It's brutal. It's the slush season. You've had a lot of winter behind you and still more to go ahead of you, and then you go to a place where the daytime temperatures are getting into the 70s and it's sunny, and we decided to move to Arizona after doing that 2 Februaries in a row. And we've been down here for 20 years, and I'd worked in the field of industrial automation after college.
Did you work with, who is it? There was a company that I did. I worked with Eaton, Rockwell International, Schneider. I did a lot of that stuff down to the component level. Is that what you were in, the PLCs?
Well, not directly in PLCs myself, although I did sell in my later time in motion control industry. I sold variable speed drives and control systems, but most of my time was spent more at the component level, selling bearings, power transmission, actuators, and again, motors and control systems. So the controls were not as in-depth, but it still gave me a really good experience in both the electrical and mechanical components, and I didn't really enjoy it. And my wife was very helpful in encouraging me to reevaluate my career. So I actually had this great book that a friend of mine recommended, and I'm not very big on these types of things normally, but he knew I was not particularly satisfied with the work I was doing, and there was aspects of it I liked. I was involved in a pretty broad range of cool electrical and mechanical gizmos, and I got to help people design and engineer and sell it, and so that was fun, but overall the work wasn't really satisfying. So he recommended I read this book called "What Color Is Your Parachute?" And it was a corny book in some respects, but it had these exercises you had to do where you had to identify what you liked and what you were good at, and what you didn't like and what you were not good at. And it was really excellent exercise when you draw out that quadrant, what you're good at,
Yep.
what you are not good at, what you like, and what you don't like. And then the advice they gave, which really made sense to me, was pursue that which you are good at and that you like. And if you can focus on that, you will be able to find a way to make a living at it. And that's really resonated with me. And I ended up identifying that I really enjoyed teaching people about technical subjects and battery systems, energy storage were really high on my list of interesting topics. And as luck would have it, I had a job interview with another company in the motion control related componentry industry, and I was really close to getting the job, and at the last minute it all fell apart, and I was quite disappointed. And my wife had been for some time asking me, well, what about solar? Because I always thought, oh, this is pretty cool technology. And I was pretty down about losing this job opportunity. She said to me again, what about solar? And my response, I could think of it as if it were yesterday, it was about 11 years ago. I said, well, I really like it. I'm just not sure if I can make a living at it. And she encouraged me. And that was really my thought. I'd worked for a brief moment in college for selling solar water heating systems, and I was good at it. But the new solar PV electric technology that developed in that period of time, I didn't know much about it, and I did some research online. I couldn't find out anything. And she said, well, is there a big trade show? And I discovered there was this show in San Jose called Solar Power 2006.
Oh, wow. You go back to 2006.
Yeah, and it was the biggest show, and it was still a pretty modest-sized show by today's comparison. And I went up there, and it was like friggin' incredible. I attended the full conference and walked the expo, and I was really just like turned on by this incredible technology. And as I was wandering the aisles of the expo, I ran across the booth of this company called AEE Solar.
Oh, that's a big name there.
That's who I ended up working for originally. But I met Annie Katz, who is the wife of the founder of AEE Solar, David Katz, and it was just a wonderful conversation. And we really just connected on a personal level. And I was, through a sequence of events, and it was really an interesting story, just came to finally meet David Katz, who became my friend and mentor, the founder of Alternative Energy Engineering, one of the early pioneering companies of the PV industry. And in that past 10 plus years now, the experience has been fantastic. I just love the work I do. I love the industry that I work in, and the people are incredible. They're really just the most interesting, fun people to be around that I've ever met in my life.
So let me ask you, how did that, first of all, I understand what you were saying about leaving this kind of Midwestern mentality that, you don't think about renewable energies because everything is based around cars, and we have kind of a similar way to that path because I too got sick of, that up and down experience that you have related to automotive coming from Michigan. And I literally prayed to God. I said, God, get me out of here. I either want to be in medical or I really want to be in solar. And about 2 years later, I was going through a life change anyway. I ended up right there. And I said the same thing that you said is like, I want to teach people. I want to connect and build really good energy by teaching people, things that I know, I figure out and can learn, which seems like what you did as well.
Well, I've always believed strongly, Emmett, and I think you share this value, that education is so critically important for everybody at all levels. It's the cornerstone on which civilization is built, and it's how we as a people move forward in a positive way. Failure to educate ends up as failure of a society. So I really respect education to the point that I'm willing to dedicate my life work to helping improve the educational quality, in this case in the solar field, even if the financial rewards aren't as significant. And while, I came to realize years ago, because I had my best money earning year, which was quite good, was not my happiest year. And when I got into the solar field, I took a sizable cut pay. That was something, in fact, in my first training session where I learned about what it's like to work in the solar industry, everybody who was speaking agreed, you're going to reduce your income to go work in the solar industry. And I did it, and it was the best experience of my life. I made about, on an annual basis for my salary, about 35% less than I had previously made, but my happiness level, my job satisfaction level skyrocketed. It was incredible, and it really taught me that the billionaire lifestyle, for example, I can assure you I'm not a billionaire from a financial standpoint, but from the standpoint of how I feel when I'm with these people that I respect and that are my friends, and in an industry I truly love, that I feel is making a positive contribution to mankind, that's a special feeling that $1 billion can't buy.
And you summed that up, eloquently about the billionaire lifestyle, because people ask me my elevator pitch, and I say it's not about money. It is literally not about money. When you think of a billionaire, you think of somebody who is happy, who has the things that he or she needs, and doesn't really worry about the small things. And that's what so many people are caught up on, is the small things versus just going out and doing the one thing is learning. Because if you learn and follow your passion, then that will lead you to places that you can't imagine how wonderful they are. It's like a little paradise on earth, because I feel the same way when I am working in the solar industry, talking to people, extracting to people, and helping them, because a lot of times they have problems and they just need a solution or they need an answer, and I can provide that for them.
Well, I think that for me, at least, working in the educational field, I feel like I'm making a contribution. I have a simple philosophy on, I guess, life, and that is, and part of the reason it drove me out to make this career change, a drastic career change at the time, when solar really wasn't viewed as a happening industry yet, was when I'm laying in my deathbed, I don't want to look back on my life and feel like I didn't do anything that mattered to me.
Yep.
And since I've come to work in the solar industry, I can say without hesitation, when I'm laying on my deathbed, whatever that might be, I won't look back with regret and say I didn't do anything that mattered to me, because I feel like this work that I've done in the solar industry for the past 10 years has mattered to me quite a bit. I feel I feel we're making a positive contribution to our society by helping bring about this new technology that is improving the environmental quality of the way we generate energy.
That is, it's. I'm tongue tied right now, lost for words, because you said it best, and and it's led you down some paths or some areas that you probably didn't even think that you would experience, because now you're involved with nbsp and SEI. Can you explain a little bit for those who are novice to the renewable energy and solar and the education, because a lot of people just kind of ignorant and they don't even know where to start?
Sure. Well, I'm involved in a number of different things. My day job, I'm the Senior Director of Policy for a company called Quick Mount PV, which is the largest manufacturer of residential solar roof attachments. We're the device that bolts the solar system to your roof and waterproofs that penetration so that water doesn't get in. So that's my day job, and in that job I do a number of other things. I actually serve as the secretary for the industry certification group known as NABCEP, the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, and also serve on the board of the California Solar Energy Industry Association, where I chair the Committee on Codes and Standards. I'm involved in the development of a UL standard for rack-mounted PV systems. So I'm engaged in a lot of different, what are generically referred to as policy-related issues, codes, standards, advocacy, and I also do a lot of education of folks, primarily in the field of the products that Quick Mount PV offers, the roofing products that we manufacture. And I also do training on the codes and the standards and some solar business practices. So for those folks that have an interest in possibly getting into the solar industry, if you go to the Quick Mount PV website, there's a webinar that I do on I think it's every 3-month basis called Successful Solar Business. It's really targeted towards folks that are new to solar or interested in getting a job in the industry so that they can get that 30,000-foot appreciation of how this industry works.
Good.
So those are some of the major things that I'm involved with. And then my solar training organization, who I love, is Solar Energy International. I took my first solar courses from them in early 2007, both their beginner and advanced, which at the time were the only 2 courses that they had available for PV. And they were fantastic and really significant, because when I went to work for AEE Solar, as at the time my title was Training and Trade Show Manager, I ended up as the Director of Trainings and Trade Shows, but I ended up hiring Solar Energy International to teach classes for AEE Solar dealers, and it was a wonderful relationship. At the time, I was their biggest customer that they had ever had, and I was very significantly involved in solar training over the course of 3 years of working with AEE Solar.
Good deal. So what have you done outside of that? Because you have Solar Pioneers, and you have some projects in the pipeline here that are moving forward.
Yeah, well, to explain the Solar Pioneer concept, AEE Solar was plain and simple the best experience of my life. The people I worked with became the best friends that I've ever had in my life, and it was fun. Our customers were fun, and training events were fun, and we used to, myself and my good buddy Davey Ripner, who now lives up in Pender Island, Canada, near Vancouver, he and I used to travel around much of the country, different trade shows and dealer training events, educating new dealers in the industry. And we had a great time. At the time when I worked for AE, we conducted 3 dealer training conferences over the course of a few years, and they were the largest attended technical training conferences in the PV industry that have ever been held. Even to this date, they've only been equaled. They've never been exceeded in total number of participants. But the group was such an awesome group. These were oftentimes the people who started the PV industry. So when I left AEE Solar in 2010, I said to my coworkers, I said, "Don't worry, we'll get together and have a reunion party." And over the course of the next 5 years, we talked about that.
That's how it
we kept
is.
saying, "Hey, wouldn't it be great?" Yeah, we talked about a reunion, and so as it happened, my buddy Deep Patel from the company that most people might know him by is Sunjack. They make these cool solar chargers for USB devices like phones and iPads. But Deep was getting more involved in the battery side of the business, and I said, you really owe it to yourself to understand the roots of this industry and to travel up to where solar was born. And so he joined myself and my good buddy from work, Jason Vetterly, and Johnny Weiss, who's the founder of Solar Energy International. We traveled up to Humboldt County, And we stayed there for a few days, just hanging out, enjoying the atmosphere, hanging out with David Katz and some other folks that were significant in the early days of solar, and we had a wonderful time. I hadn't been back there for about 3 years, so it was really just a blast to go back there.
Now, this was a grassroots campaign, right? Like back to nature kind of thing, right?
Well, we were staying up at David Katz's original homestead location. It's about 15, I don't know, gee whiz, maybe 20-minute drive west of Garberville, California, Redway, Garberville area. And, yeah, it's up in the hills. It's a rustic setting for sure. It's in the woods. Everything in that part of the world that's, not right in town tends to be down a dirt road and sometimes down long dirt roads. So we went up there, had a wonderful time, and a few months later, my buddy Deep called me back. He said, "Hey, when are we going back up there? That was a lot of fun." And I thought, yeah, it was, but if we're going to go, we're going to do it right and tell everybody. So I posted to Facebook to my friends and said, "Hey, who's up for a good old hippie party up in Humboldt?" And got so many responses back. They said, "Okay, well, let's do this." And we ended up calling it the Solar Pioneer Party and invited all of those folks that helped invent the solar industry back in the early 80s, and we got a hell of a turnout. Somewhere in the range, I'd say, of 2/3 of the heavy hitters of the early days came. I was shocked, and knowing that so many of these major players of the early days of PV were going to be there, I twisted the arm of my good buddy and coworker Jason Vetterly, who's our staff video production professional, and said, "Gosh, come on up here and do some video. I don't think we're ever going to get these people back in one place at one time.
And he's awesome.
And we really need to document their stories." And that's what he came up and did. It was great.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. I really like hanging out with him whenever I can. And he does video, correct?
He does video, and that's so what we decided after the party, after looking at some of this footage, which was shot at night at a party, so it was kind of loud, was, wow, there's great stories, but this isn't the right way to tell the story of how this industry started. You got to be outdoors in these locations where people started this technology, and for the past 12 months, Jason and I have traveled around the western United States to these different birthplaces of the PV industry and interviewed these heavyweights of the early days of PV for a documentary film that we'll be releasing next year.
That's awesome, because I got kind of inaugurated into it, I think in 2012 or 2013 with my first AEE conference. And you see, I came from automotive, so it was like shirt and tie kind of deal with those, Dockers on. And I got there and everybody was so relaxed. There were ponytails and people, they were telling these stories about, why and how it came to be. And it was just kind of a mind-blowing experience, because when you come from this industrialized America, you think that it's very, business focused, but really he was just solving a problem, which was awesome.
Well, you describe, I think, the culture of AE very nicely. One thing I loved about working there is that it was a relaxed environment. It was the happiest workplace that I had ever worked in. People just enjoyed so much each other's company, and not only working together, but being friends with one another. It was a very unique situation. I came from a corporate environment like yourself. I mean, I worked for large Fortune 500 corporations. I had worked for also a smaller company, so I had a chance to compare and contrast. And working for AE Solar was like working in a family business.
And that's a good thing.
Great.
That's one of those things that's, starting to become a relic of America, because everything is so, corporatized. And, I always think of radio stations, for instance. It used to be when we were junior high and high school that if you went around the country, you didn't hear the same songs because they were kind of independent, as well as there was grocery stores you went to. There were small businesses in neighborhoods that weren't corporate. They were just businesses that solved a problem for the community and provided for a family or two or five. And that's one of the things with solar that I like so much about, and I fear that it will go corporate, which is kind of the inevitability of what things may come. But there's still that
Well, it already has, hasn't it?
Oh,
I mean, in many cases.
Yeah, I see it. I've seen it particularly with the conferences in Las Vegas and how they've grown immensely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, when I've gone around interviewing these people that started the PV industry, we have a few questions, and I won't tell you what they are because there's some nice surprises I want to reveal in the documentary film debut when we do it next year at the third and final Solar Pioneer Party in Mendocino County. But one of the things that we do ask all of these people that invented the industry is, their advice for future generations, and it was really quite compelling for me to be sitting there as the interviewer asking these people who I respect tremendously, and most of them are just so smart that I would argue that they might be on the genius level. And you're asking them their advice for future generations, and it's really, heavy stuff to hear their perspective, because they started in the industry because they wanted, by and large, cleaner, quieter ways to generate power than what was available at the time. And certainly believing in a sustainability ethic and an environmentally minded approach to life where you're not consuming more than you can produce. And that mentality of sustainability they've lived with for decades. And obviously when they have woke up to the reality that climate change, the problem that presented, I think it's really caused many of them to be concerned for their grandchildren, and so I would say that will be, I think, more compelling part of the documentary film, is how these founders of the industry view the environmental challenges that we struggle with today, the societal challenges, if you will, and in fairness, what prompted most of them to move to these remote parts of the country was their belief that society wasn't functioning properly, and they wanted to move out into the country where, in theory, you could live a quieter, more simple, sustainable life. Hard-working, no doubt. And this is hard work to homestead. Hard work. Toting water and chopping wood. That's what the lifestyle's like, and that's what these people did. They worked their butts off to carve a life out of the wilderness. And what they learned over the course of those 30 to 40 years of doing that and servicing these off-grid communities is really pretty heavy stuff for me as a human being, not just an amateur filmmaker, if you will, but it's really been pretty significant to hear their perspective on life, Emmett.
Cool. Well, most of my interviews last about 30 minutes, and we're probably at the 30-minute mark, and we've covered a great deal of things that I think could inspire people or even just pique their interest into not only your movie and some of the things that you promote and are involved with, but just their interests overall as well. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you so I could, just present this to the world. And this is actually a great interview, and I thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate the time to speak with folks, and I will keep you posted on the details for the documentary film. We're going to be releasing it as a non-commercial, I like to call it a really elaborate home movie next year, and as far as distributing it to a broader audience, that's to be determined, but those people who are in the industry that go to industry events will likely be able to see the film toward the latter part of next year and into the following year.
So what are your contacts? So your Facebook group, because if someone's interested, not even just for solar, it could be people who like the lifestyle.
Sure. Well, we do have a group on Facebook called Solar Pioneers, plural. So pioneers like the old-time pioneers, yep. And solar pioneers. And if you're interested, you can reach out to me on that group. Then I also can be reached through my QuickMount PV email address, which is jeff.spies, spelled like spies, S-P-I-E-S, at quickmountpv.com. And go to trade shows. I'm always around, and do a lot of training. So,
how about Twitter? Are you on Twitter?
I am. I'm on Twitter as Solar Spies, one word, and I also have my solarspies.net email address is just simply jeff@solarspies.net. So those are the major ways that folks could get in touch with me, and I would say that my feeling, I believe this truly, that this story that we're telling about how this industry started has so much more value than just people in the industry. I'm convinced that this is going to be a very compelling story for civilians, for the folks just at home that kind of think solar is cool. Maybe they like homesteading. There's a lot of TV shows on that now, and the interesting tie-ins as to how marijuana industry helped fuel the early days of the solar industry by providing the funds to buy these super expensive panels until they dropped the price.
That's awesome.
So well, more to come. Maybe we can do another interview when we're closer to the debut of the film, and we can let folks know how they might be able to see it.
That'd be awesome. Hey, man, thank you so much, and I'll see you at the next event.
Excellent.
Till then, everybody, go live the billionaire lifestyle. Do what you need to do because your heart will tell you exactly what that is. Till next time, peace. I'm out.